Everybody has trauma. Let me make something clear. Nobody should feel weird about that. Nobody should feel like an outsider. It's relative. Never judge yourself. Oh, it wasn't that serious. Oh, it was just serious. It was just this. My parents just didn't acknowledge me. And look, and I'm not saying this is time to go back and blame and hate everybody either. It's a time to move forward and invest in yourself, confront the issues, do the work to remove it. And it's absolutely 100% your responsibility to do all of this. Nobody's on the hook for your shit anymore.
Nope. It's not your fault. It happened, but it's not. But it is your responsibility.
100%. 1000%. So I'm not saying this is you get to be a victim for a day. Nope. Not in my house. You're a fucking warrior, and you're gonna win. So you confront it, you replace it. You confront it, remove, replace. That's a process.
Yeah.
And it feels great. You might even be 3 months in and be like, that's it, I'm healed, I'm ready. And that's just theory until you're back in the same situation that triggers that shit. Then you're gonna see where you're at.
Right.
That's when you're like, oh fuck, I still got a little more work to do. So you go back and do a little more. You go back and do. But what you do is through these experiences, you're filling up the toolbox, and what you're getting an opportunity to do. See, basically trauma, basic neural pathway. Right. So we have this neural pathway laid down, gives us from 0 to 7 years of age, we form our self-esteem, our attachment style, our perception of love, and our self-perception. So these things are built, and what they are is reinforced into adolescence, teens, and adult years. In which you inadvertently, like I said, you're always going to be a default. You're just going to little by little reinforce all that fucked up shit that was spoken into you or that you experienced. So you've got, however old you are, years of a neural pathway built and cultivated that's talking to you 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, every microsecond. There's information telling you this is the truth, this is the truth, this is the truth, whatever it is. I'm starting to sweat. I told you I had too many clothes on. So it's a process. So what you have to do is think of it as how they lay a highway through wilderness. First, you got to go in and cut some trees. Then you got to get some equipment in there, some D6s and some trackhoes and some backhoes and some trucks, and grade the land and cut it smooth. Then you got to prep it, form up for concrete. Then you got to pour the concrete. Then you got to put lights up. Then you got to put roads. And you got to plant pretty bushes. And there's all this work that makes it a functioning, clear highway. And if you think of it at first, just the trees cut down, you can walk through it a little better, but you ain't driving through it.
Yeah.
So you grade the dirt. You can walk through it, but you're just going to get muddy. And you're going to have you're going to be trudging. You do the concrete, it's a little better, but there's still something missing. At least you can have a nice walk. And now you can drive. So you're a little quicker and a little more efficient. You can drive, but you don't have the lines yet. So you don't even know which way you got to go. So we're going to put some signs and some lines in. Then you can really drive and you're navigating this shit and you're starting to really understand. You're learning the new highway. Well, what has to happen at the same time is that you stay on that new highway. You got to stay on that project all the time. So if you've, like my age, I started doing it when I was 41, 6 years ago.
Wow.
It doesn't take 41 years to undo, right? So that's the light at the end of the tunnel there. So
you're like 82 and you're like, I'm almost done.
Yeah, finally, I can be in a normal relationship. No, that's not how it works. And so what's happening is, as you lay in this new pathway down, the one that's already laid, the fucking crazy highway, is being neglected. So what happens when you ever seen an abandoned roadway? The asphalt starts cracking, light poles fall over, trees start growing up, grass grows, and well, that's what needs to happen. That's no longer a usable path.
Yeah,
it has to be demolished. And so it's a balance, and you have to be patient and compassionate and kind with yourself. You also have to be realistic and firm, though. You can't just feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to call yourself out on your own bullshit. when it comes up, because it will.
Yeah.
So you slowly transition. You understand? Did I do a good job of explaining that? Well,
absolutely. That was a fantastic analogy. And I really like what you said, that it's a process. So it's not going to happen overnight. And coming back to the alcohol, like it makes sense once you start going through this, why people drink, why people use drugs, because it completely covers that up.
Oh yeah.
And once you get sober, all that stuff starts to come up. And it is very like, I mean, it's scary to face, and you're just like, you know, you're going through your day and all of a sudden you're just like, whoa. And then you go through a process of needing to address it. And I like the term dark night of the soul. So that kind of gave me some peace around dealing with trauma.
Love that.
Dark night of the soul. You're in, you know, you're in yourself, you're figuring yourself out. And I just went through one this last week, and it was hell. It was. And I knew, though, like you said, it was so right here that I couldn't ignore it anymore. Like there's no possible way, literally no possible way. So I had to just go right into it and face it. Had a lot of calls with a lot of people in my support system, which I'm very grateful for, to have that. And that's another great thing to find in your recovery as well. For people watching, is to get a mentor.
That's part of recovery.
Yep.
Fellowship.
Part of recovery. Yep. And so they really helped walk me through it, helped kind of give different perspectives on it. And I really think the most important thing, and what you said as well, Joe, is like having kindness for yourself, having that compassion, having patience. And that can be tough when you're a man, for example. You know, you're on your purpose, you lift weights, you know, you date women. Like you shouldn't be having to be kind to yourself. Like it's just go, grind. But really, that's like the key to have that self-love. As you know, as cheesy as it might sound, the more you can develop that, and I'm talking to myself too, the more I can develop that, the better I feel about these situations, and the better the relationships reflect that too. Because once you can love yourself, you're not seeking that in other people anymore. You're not.
That's a great point. I'm glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that. I know I told you briefly before we went live about this whole Instagram thing, and some backlash that I caught from my comment. And that's through this process, through the trauma healing, and through your own healing journey, whether it's from recovery, trauma, in which you're right. When you first get sober and all that shit comes back to surface, not only is it back to surface, you're foggy. You're in bad shape. And all of a sudden you have no defense against it. You should be able to drown it. And look, let me make it known that if alcohol still worked, I'd still be drinking. You know what I mean?
Right.
It comes to a point where it doesn't work anymore. It kind of turns the volume up on shit. Instead of quieting the voices, it made them louder. Instead of quieting the flaws, it brought it out. And like when you in that shit, you can't stand and look at yourself in the mirror. You're so ashamed of yourself. Like, oh, you're disgusted. That's a bad spot. It's a bad spot. But there's also an opportunity now. Now it is, because you have this awareness and you're moving through it now. You're not trying to run from it.
Yeah.
You're moving through it. So that, and these experiences, these little dark nights of the soul, and the self-reflection and introspection is opportunities for the greatest growth you can ever experience.
Yeah.
That's what that stuff comes up to surface for. It's your opportunity. That's your subconscious keeps bringing it up for a reason. And it's like your higher self telling you, look, we need to get rid of this shit. We got to do something about this.
Yeah.
It's not going away. Fix it.
And thankfully, as men, we like to fix things. So we got that going for us. That's such a great way to put it. Like it's a blessing, not a curse. And hey, you know, if you're going through it and in the moment it feels like a curse, that's totally okay. Like it's gonna hurt like a bitch. But when you start to see the other side of it, when you start to have those revelations and those epiphanies, it's like, oh, thank God that happened. Like, dude. And when you realize all the stuff you were carrying around, once you start to expel that, you're just like, dude, it's like carrying around 100-pound rucksack and you drop 50 pounds. You're just like, oh,
yeah,
my shoulders don't hurt anymore.
Well, then you get to see that brings more clarity. Like, wait a minute. This wasn't even mine. Like, this shit didn't even belong to me. How the fuck did that get there?
Oh,
well, it's gone now. And then, so what that does is open the door, open a path forward to what you are and what your potential is. So then, and this is part of the neglecting the old highway and building a new one. This is part of that process, is that you start discovering these really fucking awesome things about yourself.